Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this information session for the Certified Lay Minister role within the Western North Carolina Conference. We're excited to have you with us this evening, and we're very excited about your interest in this particular role. Um, we are going to be working through some information this evening together that hopefully will answer any questions that you may have. But we'll be glad to follow up with you after the meeting if there are questions that are unique to your particular situation. My name is John Crane, and I'm honored to be the conference lay leader and the conference director of Lay Servant Ministries. I am a member of First United Methodist Church in Gastonia, where I worship there. And excited this evening to be joined by Dr. Jim Brooks, who is our CLM cohort director. So, Jim, let me give you a moment to just introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. I'm Jim Brooks, and I am certified lay minister. I've been assigned to Wilkesboro United Methodist Church as assistant minister for worship and the arts. And I've been an employee at the church for, goodness, about 35 years, directing the choir and music program. And in the last 3 years, those roles expanded to the CLM designation. And so I'm glad to be here with you tonight and glad to see this many people interested in learning more about what it means to be a certified lay minister.
Thank you so much. So this evening, we are going to talk about what is lay servant ministries. We don't want to make any assumptions, but I know most of you, when you registered, indicated that you were already a certified lay servant. So you probably some of that information will be a repeat for you, but we just want to make sure that we are grounding everyone and starting out from the same place. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the role of the certified lay minister and how you can work through that process of certification. We'll talk about the timing and the cost and those kind of things. Then we'll finish with next steps and questions. So when we talk about lay servant ministries, lay servant ministries is a formal structured training program that is part of the United Methodist Church, and it equips laity to serve in various roles in their local church and beyond. And lay servant ministries focuses on three particular aspects of our discipleship, and that is leading, caring, and communicating. And one of the things that makes lay servant ministries different is that you really aren't going into or taking lay servant ministry classes to learn about a topic. You're going into it to learn about how to lead in that topic, right? So, for example, we do not conduct, say, Bible studies through lay servant ministry trainings, advanced courses, but we offer a class on how to teach Bible studies, or we offer classes on how to serve serve in the areas of evangelism, or how to lead in worship, how to proclaim the word. So there's a variety of different training opportunities for folks who are interested in developing their skills and learning how they can serve in different ways through their church. Now, we recommend that anyone who is a local church lay leader, we do recommend that they participate in lay servant ministries, and I particularly encourage them to at least take our introductory course. But there is no requirement that someone serve, or someone who's going to serve as a local church lay leader actually be part of the lay servant ministry program. But the Book of Discipline does encourage those who are local church lay leaders to participate in the program. And so, for those of you who are already a certified lay servant, I would invite you that, if you are know that your particular lay leader at your church is not participating in the program, I would ask you to encourage them to maybe join you in that work. When we think about certified lay ministries, there are three specific roles that individuals can choose to pursue. The first role, where everyone starts, is becoming a certified lay servant. Now, in the past, if you were part of this program a long time ago, before 2012, you may have considered yourself to be a certified lay speaker. And that's because when the program originally started, it was called lay speaking ministries instead of lay servant ministries. But in 2012, the General Conference changed that. And so everyone became certified lay servants because we wanted to focus on the fact that there's a variety of ways that individuals serve, and that's not always through speaking or proclamation or pulpit supply or those kind of things. And we felt like individuals were maybe thinking that there was no reason for them to take LSM training if they were not interested in preaching. But that's not the case. There's a variety of different ways that you can serve. And so, to become a certified lay servant, we require folks to take an introductory class, and then you have to take one advanced lay servant ministry class, and that would make you then be a certified lay servant. And there's a lot of things that people do as certified lay servants within their local congregations, different ways that they serve both there and beyond in both district and conference leadership roles or in other um, ministries that their church is involved in. And so many folks decide, I want to be a certified lay servant and I'll maintain my certification there, but there's no need for me to go any further in the program. However, if they are interested in moving further along, we have two additional roles. One is a certified lay speaker, and that role is designed specifically for individuals who feel particularly called to proclamation of the word. And they are interested in maybe having a ministry that specializes in pulpit supply. So if you're a certified lay servant, you can preach at your own church. You can be asked to preach on occasion at another church. But a certified lay speaker is someone who's gone through some additional training around preaching and worship design and and polity and those kind of things. And they might be someone who the district superintendent would call upon, let's say if a pastor needed to be on leave for a few months and they needed somebody who could show up every Sunday and preach, then somebody who's a certified lay speaker could be asked to fill that role. And then the reason we're here tonight is to talk about the role of certified lay minister. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this overview there because that's what Jim's getting ready to do us a deep dive into. But just know that this isn't a hierarchy. So you do not have to go from certified lay servant to certified lay speaker and then to certified lay minister. Everyone has to be a certified lay servant to start with, but then you can choose to be a certified lay speaker or you can choose to be a certified lay minister, but it's not a progression that you have to go through. So with that as kind of background, let me turn it over to Jim, and he's going to talk specifically about the certified lay minister role and the way that we conduct the training process here in the Western North Carolina Conference.
So, like John said, it's only been since 2012 that we've had this designation as a certified lay minister role. And so you'll find that a lot of folks, probably in your home churches and maybe even in your district, are not really aware of the certified lay minister role. And so as you are learning about it, you may be, needing to help educate your church leadership council or your minister even in what the role of the certified lay minister is. It is an emerging role since 2012 that addresses some emerging need within our conference and within our general conference even. With fewer people going into the ministry and with disaffiliation and other things that have kind of changed the landscape a bit, having more laity to serve in leadership roles has turned out to be a good thing. And so there is some historical precedent for it, though. Knowing that we have a history of circuit riding preachers who often, only made it through to preach every month or so. But the work of the church was carried on in the meantime by lay people who were there day to day and Sunday to Sunday to carry on the work of the church until that circuit riding preacher was back around. And so So there's a lot of historical precedent for this kind of work, and it is once again kind of meeting the needs of the church. So it might be a good way to begin to talk about the certified lay minister role by talking about what it's not, so that we clear up any misconceptions about what it is. It is not a path to ordination. John was mentioning a minute ago that is not a hierarchy of lay servant and then lay speaker and then certified lay minister, nor is it a path that you are a certified lay minister and then a licensed local pastor and then a deacon and then an elder. Um, this is a calling in and of itself, and we'll learn more about what those duties are. But it is not a path to ordination, as sometimes people think that it might be. It's also not simply pulpit supply, because that would be more of the lay speaker role. Because you'll find as we talk about the certified lay ministry duties, it's a lot more encompassing than just pulpit supply. And it's not always a pastoral role. We sometimes think when we have the word minister attached to certified lay minister, we may think more of the pastoral aspects and duties of that role. Sometimes that's part of the calling, and sometimes it's not. You might be serving in a specialized area where perhaps there's a specialized need within your church or within your district that you're filling as a certified lay minister, but it isn't always a pastoral role. So, what is it then? A lay person who feels led to serve their church in a variety of ways. And so a lot of the training that we begin the training for certified lay minister with a lot of discussion about calling and where you feel led to call or to work and serve within your church. We also encourage and help you facilitate some conversations with your minister and with your leadership council, so that you can explore what areas you are feeling called to work eventually as a certified lay minister. And you will want to establish an agreement eventually with your minister and with your council about what you're feeling called to do and seeing how this fits into the church's mission and the church's plans. It's also someone who has a call and gifts for a specialized lay ministry. You may have an idea of what that specialized area might be, but you also may discover that along the way, because the training that you'll have through the modules that we'll talk about later is quite a discernment process, and you'll learn a lot about yourself along the way, and you may realize that you have gifts and interests for a specialized lay ministry area. And it's also someone wanting to support the ministry of their local church or their charge or their district. And so your church may have needs that you're aware of, and you feel like you have talents and gifts that might serve those needs. So a certified lay minister is equipped to conduct public worship, care for the congregation, assist in program leadership, develop new and existing faith communities. Sometimes we refer to these communities as fresh expressions. Those could be one way that you serve in your community and kind of as an outgrowth of your church. Preaching the word, leading small groups, and establishing community outreach ministries, much in the same way that an ordained deacon might be, reaching out from the church into the community. Okay. So, as a certified lay minister, you would work under the supervision of your pastor or another clergy appointed to your church. It could be that there's a retired minister in your congregation, but you generally work underneath your pastor. You could also work under the supervision of a clergy person that's assigned by the district superintendent, especially if you were working, less in a formal church setting and maybe more in a fresh expressions kind of community situation, that you might be supervised by someone assigned by the district superintendent.
Yeah, another way, Jim, just on that one is we do have, although as you said, it's not always the case, but some certified lay ministers do get asked to take a an appointment
Exactly.
at a small church or in a congregational setting, and in that case, they might, for example, be assigned under a presiding elder who has overall accountability for supporting churches in that particular part of your district. So that's another way.
Yes, thank you for adding that because I am aware of someone recently in our district who we had a small church that was kind of under the supervision of another larger church, and that minister and certified lay minister was appointed there. Thank you. Um, so certified lay ministers are accountable to their local church where they hold membership, um, the congregation or the ministry setting where they serve. And then they're also accountable to the District Committee on Ordained Ministry. You've probably heard that referred to as DCOM in the past. And then the Conference Committee on Lay Servant Ministries. These are all the different areas that the certified lay minister is connected to. Okay, so we'll talk in kind of some general terms here about how you become a certified lay minister, and then we have some slides later that will break down some of these bullet points into more detail. As John has said already, the prerequisite to starting the study to become a certified lay minister is that you be a certified lay servant or certified lay speaker. And then from there, you obtain a written recommendation from your pastor and the church council or charge conference of your church in which you hold membership. Because remember, this is a partnership between you and your church, and the church needs to be aware of your interest and your calling. And there's paperwork that they submit recommending you, and that we keep track of through reporting during charge conference. You would complete a track of study for certified lay ministers that are relevant to your assignment, and I will be leading that cohort study and that track of study, and we'll be talking about what the different modules involve. And then eventually you'll receive a letter of recommendation from your district superintendent once you've completed those modules of study. And then once you've met all these areas for certification, which also include screening and assessment that the annual conference requires, once all that's reviewed by the Conference Committee on Lay Servant Ministries, you're referred to the District Committee on Ordained Ministry or DCOM. You write a paper for them and you have an interview before them. And then they would make their recommendation then for your certification and to send your name on to the annual conference. So that sounds like a lot, perhaps. And so your next question is likely, how long does this take to complete? And it's really up to you. You can take this make this happen in as few as 9 months. 4 to 5 months would be with the coursework, and then 2 to 3 months with the psychological examination and the other evaluation steps that are necessary before you go before DCOM. But you can take as much time as you want. I worked with a cohort of CLM candidates last year, and a number of those went through the process, were able to work with their minister to complete the modules. There were others in the program who I imagine because of just working out a schedule with their minister, didn't complete all 4 modules and are still working through the process. So there's no set time. It's completely up to you, but we are operating under some deadlines that have to occur within the conference because In order to appear before DCOM in March or April, the modules have to be completed. And before you can move on to the next step of each time, there are certain things that have to be completed. So all of that has to be done by spring in order to get you before DCOM and then eventually on to annual conference in June. And so we'll be looking at that timeline more specifically in just a minute. But it can occur between now and next spring if that is your desire. And it may start off as your plan. Um, I find that with all things like this, that sometimes our best intentions sometimes get sidetracked a bit by life, and I want to just make it really clear that if that happens, don't beat yourself up over it and feel so bad about it, because we certainly understand um, that this is simply a best case scenario for starting it, in August and getting finished in the spring, and that there's certainly nothing wrong with taking your time, because a lot of folks are finding, I believe, that a little bit more time for discernment and for shaping their calling and understanding their calling and working out the agreement with their churches, that's time well spent.
If I can just add there, I think that's very well said, and I know I had a chance to speak to one of the folks who started our program last year, and he said as he worked through the modules and went through a period of discernment with his pastor and with his family, he discovered that he really felt more called to licensed local pastorate. And so he wanted so he kind of paused doing the CLM work and then talked with his DS and is moving over into being the licensed local pastor track. And, that's, we have had some other folks who became certified lay ministers and really were not expecting to be asked to lead a local church. Circumstances were such that their district needed them, and they were open to where God was leading there, and they did that and served for a year or so, and then realized, boy, I really am called to this, and so they've chosen to move on and to become a licensed local pastor after serving for a CLM. So the discernment process is a big piece of this, and if you need more time to figure that out, we definitely want you to take what you need and are here to kind of support you through that process.
And and likewise, I did hear from someone who was part of the cohort last year that through her discernment process, she realized that she, as a certified, as a lay servant, she was already able to do the work that she, was feeling called to do, and really decided that rather than spending the time on the rest of the modules and some of the other requirements, her church was already inviting her to do some of that work. Um, and so decided as part of her discernment process that perhaps right now wasn't the time to finish and do certified lay ministry. So it's a very personal, individualized thing, and um, I'm happy to be a part of that journey with folks as a cohort, and then individually, as people begin to kind of figure out their own timelines, to remain a part of that support process for you. So these are the 4 modules that are part of the training to be a certified lay minister. The first module we do as a cohort together, and I lead that study. And this is the call and covenant for ministry. And this is, I think, such an important place to start, because I think that often people find themselves at an information session like this and in a CLM module because they feel a call. You feel like you're being led to do something more and being led to use your gifts in some way. So we want you to understand a little bit more about your call and being able to articulate your call, and then to be able to express that call to your church leadership and your minister in such a way that together you can work out a covenant for ministry. And so this is where you'll have some understanding of theology. You'll explore your spiritual gifts, and then developing that, at least a draft of a ministry covenant of just what it is that you want to do once you have um, been granted the designation as a certified lay minister. So you want to start speaking with your church leadership early about that. But this first module we do together as a cohort. Part of what we do in here too is kind of look at what all those other roles are: certified lay minister, licensed local pastor, deacon, and elder. Just so that everyone has a good understanding of those terms, because sometimes we use those terms and maybe people don't have a complete understanding of them. And so it was real effective last year. I invited someone who is in each of those roles to speak to the group over Zoom and to talk about their calling and why they felt that they were in the right place with the area of service that they chose. And so hopefully that will help folks as they discern their own call. And then modules 2, 3, and 4 are kind of round out other aspects of what it means to be a certified lay minister. Module 2, with the practice of ministry, this has to do with leading worship, preaching, discipleship, congregational care. It's kind of a good overview of all the different aspects of ministry that a certified lay minister, might be called upon to assist their minister with. And it's also a good way for you to explore what areas of interest you may have, because you may have never, until going through the module, have been asked to lead a small group or to maybe go with your minister to visit the sick or the shut-ins or whatever, and you may find that there are parts of that work that you had never had opportunities for that you really feel called to. Module 3, the organization from ministry. This has to do with mission and ministry with guidance on congregational health. So again, just kind of the structure of the church. And Module 4 continues that with theology and practice and polity, so that you kind of understand how your church fits into and is connected to the broader church, to the district, to the conference, and to the general conference. So these are the 4 modules of study that you'll go through as you're working toward. And you see the time in modules 1 and 2 are the more intensive ones, and then modules 3 and 4, much more overview of some of those other aspects of ministry. So beyond the designation of certified lay minister, the General Conference has these areas of specialization that you might pursue once you've become a certified lay minister. And I wanted you to be aware of these, even though this would be much further down the road, in your process. But parish nurse, children's faith formation, a lay missioner, men's ministry specialist, a church planter, congregational care minister, a church administrator, a coach, leadership coach, Methodist story and ministry of memory, ministry with young people, a camping ministry, coaching, and creating a culture of discipleship. So, and these are areas that I imagine are constantly being added to as people find new specialty areas of ministry that they would like to pursue, and as these become more formalized, because there would be other online courses that you would take to receive this specialization. And again, this is just kind of an optional thing that once you become a certified lay minister, if you have a particular area of interest and that you see that that the conference has developed coursework around that for further study, and so wanted to make you aware of that. But you can find out more about these on the conference website. They do break these down into much more detailed descriptions of each one. So that might be something that you could research a little bit later.
Yeah, discipleship ministries. If you search for certified lay minister or CLM certifications or specializations, the General Conference Discipleship Ministries website speaks more about these, and each each of these areas has a organization that is in charge of their particular requirements. So you have to work directly with. So, for example, United, like the men's ministry specialist, is done in conjunction with United Methodist Men, right? So, United Methodist Men controls what that certification path would look like, and so on. So, again, if anyone's interested in that, Discipleship Ministries has more information that you can learn there, but it's not required. Most of our folks have not chosen at this point to pursue additional certification beyond just getting recognized as a certified lay minister.
Okay. So, to kind of talk about how the pathway, how this might work, or how this does work, you would complete Module One through our cohort that I'll be leading, and that will be starting at the end of August. And those will be biweekly Zoom meetings, 4 to 5 Zoom meetings, where we deal with call and kind of discerning that call, articulating that call, and then how that might then be translated into a ministry covenant with your minister in your church. We do that work together. There's a lot of value, I think, in we learn a lot from one another. And as we hear someone else's call, I think it helps us often to help be able to articulate our own call. And then you choose from two options beyond Module One, working as the cohort. You could, with option one, you could complete modules 2 through 4 with your local pastor or a supervising clergy person. And you would meet with me occasionally, and I would stay in touch with you. You would be covering the material that you would download for module 2, and you'd work through that with your minister. You might have time where you are reading and you're preparing some written artifacts, and then meet with your minister, then to go over that reading and to discuss it and to look over the work that you've done. There are different things like, might be asked to help plan a worship service, or to attend meetings of the worship committee, or to lead a small group session of some kind, or to preach a sermon. But this would all be done under the supervision of your local pastor, going this route. Then for modules 2 through 4, at the end of each module, I have kind of a check sheet for you and your pastor that have the goals and objectives for each module that you kind of check off that you have done all those things. And then I have the artifacts that are included in that module that you would send to me, so that I could have those on file and could have the opportunity to review them, to kind of help support you and mentor you through this process. And then I will have a form for each module that, once I've received the necessary documentation, then I will sign off on that and return that to you as your certificate of completion for each module. And then once you've completed all 4 modules, then you would be ready to move on to the next step. If it would be problematic for you to work with your local pastor just because of scheduling issues and that kind of thing, the other option is that you could complete modules 2 through 4 using the modules that you would download, and you'd work through it through beadisciple.com. And this is an online course that you can take for each module. And The last time we looked, we will be finishing module one in time for you to take modules two, three, and four through beadisciple.com. John will go over the costs in just a minute, how these two programs, two different pathways, compare financially. But for some people, this may be a better option. If at all possible, I think I would recommend that you work with your local pastor, because I believe that um, the time that you spend with your local pastor going through these modules is going to be part of that growing relationship that you have between you and the church and the minister, that will only strengthen the work that you might do later as a certified lay minister. Um, but I know that that's not always the ideal, is not always possible, and so there is that secondary option of doing modules two through four through Be a Disciple. And you would submit those same artifacts that you do in working with your minister. You would still submit those to me as well, because you would be asked to do those same assignments in the online course. So here are a few points. The cohort model, like I said, will meet biweekly for 2 months on Thursdays from 7 to 9, starting August the 27th. And we'll work together through that first module, Call and Covenant for Ministry. And then you would complete the other modules either through self-study or through Be a Disciple. And then you and your pastor would meet with me as you near completion of the modules, just so that I know that that you're on track and that you're ready for the next um, set of requirements, so that we can kind of keep people notified as you're moving ahead, that you have met some of the requirements and you're ready for the next phase. And then we will complete the conference assessments and the DCOM interview. There's a background check, there's psychological assessment, there's a paper that you'll write for DCOM. So even once you've gotten through the four modules, there's quite a bit of work left to get you to the finish line. But we'll be here to kind of guide you throughout the process. That's part of the support that you'll get from being a part of this cohort. You'll have the support of one another through prayer. I think working as a cohort is a wonderful support system for folks. I know in the group that met last year, they were so attentive to one another's spiritual needs and uplifted one another in prayer. I think that it is an aid in your discernment process, because sometimes we may feel something in our heart, but it's really hard to articulate it to someone. And I think this kind of pushes us in a very supportive environment to put it into words, and to be able to communicate, because eventually you have to communicate that call in the paper that you write for DCOM and in the interview that you have. So we want to help you kind of move through that process. Connections that you make, it's amazing sometimes to me how close people can get just through Zoom meetings and meeting with one another regularly. But I think you'll find that that if you choose to take part in this CLM cohort, that you will make friends and connect with one another in ways that you might not have expected, and finding encouragement from one another. By the end, folks wanted to continue meeting. They wanted to get together in person, and I think some folks did. And then when we saw one another at that annual conference in June, there were a lot of people that felt like they'd met in person for the first time, but found like they were just reconnecting with an old friend. So those are some of the kinds of support that you'll receive from participating in a cohort.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. You walking through that, and we know it's a lot of information. I'm going to share a little more with you around timing and some of the costs. and then we're going to open it up for your questions. So, put together an example of what this timeline might look like if you were to try to go from August all the way through and do everything to be recognized and at annual conference next June. So you would start in late August, as Jim indicated, and work through Module 1 together, finishing that up in the early to mid-October timeframe. Now, um, the modules 2 through 4, again, you're doing those on your own. If you've got more time and you want to download module 2 and you go ahead and get started before you finish module 1, then there you can, if you're doing the self-study path, fine, you can do that. But we have tried to set it up so that if someone wanted to take the Be a Disciple path, you could do that if you wanted to.
Don,
Um,
could I interject?
sure.
Um, while you could download, module 2 if you're doing self study and working with your minister, be a disciple. If you're going through that path, they will require proof of completion of module 1 before you can
Before
register
you
for
can
module
sign up.
2.
Right.
Yeah, so just wanted to make that
Well,
clarification.
and I think also, now that you mentioned, I think if you're doing Be a Disciple, I think their registration costs might include the cost of the book. So you wouldn't want to like buy it separately. But
Yes.
those things can change, so we'd need to make sure of that. Regardless of whether you're choosing to kind of go through, self-study, a cohort with self-study or cohort with Be a Disciple, everything finishes up mid-December. So you need to be finished with all 4 modules to stay on track. You would need to be finished with all 4 modules by mid-December. And then at that point, you would work with Jim. There's a form that we would have you fill out to send to your district that says, I've completed the modules and I want to be scheduled for my DCOM interview steps. And then in January, through January and February and March, you would be completing the background check, being scheduled for and conducting your psychological assessment. You would be writing a paper that DCOM will ask you to write that explores your call and some other topics. And then working to meet with your district superintendent, have conversations with him or her about your call and receiving your letter of recommendation from them. Um, in the spring, DCOM each district has a week that they do all of their DCOM interviews because they're interviewing not just us as certified lay ministers. They're primarily meeting with candidates for ordination or licensed local pastor, and so they have a lot of interviews to get through. They do that at the same time. They have not published that information yet, but I'm guessing that it will be in April because they normally, they kind of schedule that around Easter. So Easter next year comes late in March. My guess is that the DCOM meetings will take place shortly thereafter, but that will be confirmed. And then once you meet with the DCOM, as Jim said, the DCOM committee will be responsible for making a recommendation to the Conference Committee on Lay Servant Ministries as to whether or not you are ready for certification. The conference committee will review the documentation that has been provided, and they ultimately have the decision of recommending you to the annual conference for certification. And then, if you are recommended, that information goes to annual conference in June. And for those folks that are they're going through the process, we invite you to come up to Lake Junaluska for annual conference. During one of the business sessions, we have an opportunity to recognize you and present you with your certificate and let you greet the annual conference. So there are some cost considerations for this, and that's why it's important to go through the discernment process and to make sure that you really understand how this role is going to help you in your ministry and in responding to your particular call. Um, Depending on the path that you choose, you're probably going to end up spending somewhere between $725 or to $925 to get through this. To sign up for our cohort is a $25 registration fee that everybody will pay. And then you have to download from it's either from Cokesbury or from Discipleship Ministries the modules. They're in a PDF book. Each of those cost about $25. So let's say you're doing the self-study, you would do your CLM cohort fee, you would download module one. As you move through module two, three, and four, you would need to download the book for those. And then you work through that process. There are some recommended supplemental resources, sometimes other study books or other kinds of things. We recommend that you plan on having about $50 available for those if you would like to add those in. And then once you've gone through and completed all the modules, which we, as we said, would take you to kind of mid-December, at that point, then you would sign up to have your background check and your psychological assessment done. Now, the just to give you a little information about those two things, we require that all of our CLMs go through this process because this is the same process that someone who is going to become a licensed local pastor would be required to do. And because we don't, everyone is everyone's call is different. And just because you don't feel particularly called to local church ministry right now doesn't mean that you might not feel that call or be asked to serve in that way. And we want you to be prepared, having done all the right certifications and all of the requirements, so that you can do that if you decide to do it at the request of the district superintendent and the bishop. The psychological assessment, though, I don't want anyone to be scared off by that term. That really is just a process to help you learn more about yourself, help you understand more about how you interact with others, how you deal with conflict, and how you what some of your strengths are, what are some areas of opportunity for you. It's really more of a coaching and a opportunity for you to receive feedback from a very well qualified professional. Um, that process does take some time, and that's why it's important that we know by the end of December as to whether or not you are wanting to move forward, because you have to be scheduled with the assessment. There's a company that does the assessments based out of Charlotte, and they have to you have to have time to complete your assessments, and then they have to have time to review it, and then you they set up a meeting with you to talk through your results, and then they have to send those results to the district committee on ordained ministry. So, knowing by December as to whether or not you're interested in going forward with it is very helpful in making sure that there's enough time between then and when you're going to go to the decom to make sure you've got all your materials ready. That is the most expensive aspect of the program. It actually costs about $1,000 for a person to have that assessment done. And the Conference Board of Laity, we fund half of that. And so we will pay about $500 of that, and the other $500 you would be expected to pay. What typically happens is that you're asked to pay half of your portion at the time that you make the appointment. You get scheduled for the assessment, and then you're asked to pay the other half when you go for when you finish the process, when you go for your last appointment. So, um, if financial situations are a challenge, we do have some limited funds available through the Conference Board of Laity for those who have a demonstrated financial need, and that's something you can speak with Jim about, and then he can engage with us to see if there's some way that we can help support you in that. Sometimes there's also funds available maybe through your church or through your district where they may be able to help offset some of those costs as well. For those who are very interested in the program and feel it's a true call, we really want to work with you to try to make sure that the financial piece of it isn't a hindrance. But we do want you to know going into it what the cost is. And we don't allow folks to sign up for the background checks or the psychological assessment until you've completed the modules, because we don't want to have you incur expenses or us incur expenses that end up not being relevant for you because you haven't really completed the modules and you're not prepared to go forward with your interview process. So, with that said, here's what kind of next steps look like. If you are already a certified lay servant or you're a certified lay speaker and you want to start the cohort this fall, if you haven't done so already, please, 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 please begin to discuss that with your pastor. Because it does require that you receive your pastor's permission and the permission of your church council or your church conference, depending on which one of those meets first. Um, there is a form that is online, and that basically and you'll get a link to that if you register for the class, but it's online through the Lay Servant Ministries portion of the conference website. It's called the intent form, and it just basically has you indicate a little bit about what your call is and that you're wanting to start the study for a certified lay minister. And then there's a place for your pastor to indicate their approval and a place for your church council chairperson to sign that as well. So you will need to do that. Our registration site will be open no later than next Sunday, we would imagine, because I have your email addresses and you've participated in the program this evening. I will send you an email to let you know when that site is available for you to go out and register. Um, but the registration deadline is August 20th. So you need to make sure that you get registered by August 20th. And as Jim said, the cohort meetings start on August 27th. If you are not yet a certified lay servant or a certified lay speaker, and you're thinking that you are interested in this, but you're not able to start this year, and you want to be prepared to start next year, again, discuss that with your pastor. If you've not taken anything at all in lay servant ministries yet, we are offering the Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries course. I'll be teaching that online between September 3rd and September 24th. I'll share that with you. Just if you are a certified lay servant, let other folks in your church know about that. They might be interested in doing that too. So you can get started then. Our districts are responsible for scheduling their own advanced lay servant ministry advanced courses, and those happen throughout the year. So depending on which district you're in, some of them do them in like the winter, like in February. Some do it in the spring. My district in Catawba Valley, we normally offer something in the fall and the spring. So it really, you just work with your district office there, and then you would be approved by your pastor and church council to be a certified lay servant, and then that would get you in line to start the cohort process next August. So, um, thank you for allowing us to go through that information. I'm going to stop sharing and want to open it up for questions. So, if anyone has a question, feel free to either put that in the chat or you can bring yourself off mute and ask, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. I wanted to make sure I'm giving time for anybody.
John,
Yes, Judy.
I'd like to ask the question. You said it's going to range between 750 to 950. That 500 for the psychological assessment. Now, is that in addition to that amount?
No, that's all included.
That's all inclusive. Okay.
Yeah. So if that, and that's really the biggest part of it, Judy, to be honest with you. So let's say you're going to do the self-study option. It's $50 to register for the module one cohort, and then you got to buy the book, and the book is $50. Then you would have to buy modules 2, 3, and 4. Those are $25 each, so that's another $75. And then after that, all you really have to pay is the $500 for the psychological assessment and the $50 for the background check. But
And if
you
I
won't have
understand,
to pay those until after you get through module 4.
and so if I understood you correctly, you were saying that when you made the appointment for the psychological assessment, you paid 250 then, and
That's
then 250 when you actually went for the psychological assessment in Charlotte.
That's my understanding. That's the last I received. That's how it was working. So when you get to that point, we connect you with a colleague, Emma Sherrill, who works um, in the ministerial services office for the conference. And there's paperwork that she would send to you that explains all that, and she helps work. She works to get you connected with that assessment team,
Mm-hmm.
and they outline kind of the payment process and everything there. But that's the way it has worked in the past: is you pay 50% of it up front, and the other 50% before you go for your or as you go for your meeting with them.
And whether you do the work with your pastor or whether you do the coursework on Be a Disciple, it's the same. The modules are the same, 2 through 4. The coursework is the same, correct?
Yes, it is generally. It's the same module. It's the same books you're downloading, and there's just so Be a Disciple. There's people teaching those courses, and that they have to compensate for their time and effort. So there's a little more cost associated if you do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the materials are the same. Um, so that's the way that they do it, but it should be covering the same information.
Um, may I ask if there is a lot of reading in the modules 2 through 4?
Jim, I'll let you speak to kind of what that looks like.
I think Module 2 has more reading than 3 and 4, but I don't believe any of them have a really heavy reading load, what I would call heavy reading load. It's not like, a course where you'd be expected. Sometimes in, a lay servant ministry course, advanced course, there might be a book study, that you would use as part of that. Um, this is just reading, sections of material, on certain topics. So I don't think it's too heavy with reading.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I see. Is it Andra that you'd put a question in the chat? Um, and I want to just make sure I'm understanding your question fully. So you referenced being a local church certified lay servant, um, and in the past, there before 2012, there was a process that folks could be considered a local church lay servant, and what that meant is they had simply taken the introductory class, but they had chosen not to take an advanced class. Um, and so what that means is that that maybe you had done that, right? Um, but you had not taken an advanced class. In 2012, they basically did away with the concept of a local church certified lay servant. And so now, to become a certified lay servant, you have to take the basic course, the introduction, it's called Introduction to Lay Servant Ministries, and you have to take an advanced course. And then you get approved to be a certified lay servant. So if you've never taken an advanced course, um, you'll need to do that. So you'll need to become a certified lay servant through your local church before you begin to study for either the certified lay speaker role or the certified lay minister role. Hopefully that helps you. If not, we're glad just let me know.
John,
Yes, hey Winnie,
hi, how are you?
doing well, thank you.
That's good to hear. Hi, everybody. Um, I took this course last year, and for personal reasons, I had to stop the process. And I'm going to go back and complete it this year. Word to the wise, whatever you need to know about this process, this certification, or anything in laity, please ask either John Crane or Jim Brooks, because there's a lot of confusion out there about what's what and who and da 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 da. You do have to have the approval from your church, from your minister, talk to the minister first. Um, some ministers, some pastors, no aspersions whatsoever, do not understand the symbiotic relationship between lay servants and clergy. We are there in the old context of Wesleyan lay servants. We don't have a great number of pastors right now because of the disaffiliation. And the lay servants are there to do pulpit supply, meaning once you get your certifications, and these certifications are serious, some people may tell you you don't need them because the process changed. That's why I'm asking you to talk to Mr. Crane or Mr. Brooks about it. But this is the best thing you're ever going to do for yourself. You don't have it makes being part of the denomination and your local church so much richer because you know about the governance of the church, you know how the committees are supposed to run, you read the book of discipline, you know what the job descriptions are, you look at the what is it, the guide on social, what is it,
And
wait,
social principles. Mhm.
thank you, the social principles of the UNC, which is how we're supposed to treat each other, and we really don't shouldn't need a guide, but we, let's be real, you know we do. But you get all, every question, I promise you, every question you've ever wondered about church and church administration and exactly how do I go from here to here, and wow, that doesn't sound right, how do I find out? Being laity explains it to you.
Thank
So,
you, Winnie.
guys, I'm sorry I had to do that, but I needed to do a
Well,
commercial for you
we
because
we
I
appreciate your
would love
support.
for there to be more certified lay servants and certified lay ministers around because
Yep.
we're a kind of cool group because we
We're
provide
getting jacked.
sanity in the churches. That's
Thank
my
you.
opinion. My
Thank you, Winnie.
opinion.
Appreciate that. I want to just amplify one of the things that Winnie raised, which is, you know, as Jim said, this is a role that really only began in 2012. And some of our pastors aren't familiar with it. Some pastors really, frankly, aren't very familiar with lay servant ministries overall, and so
Mm.
they maybe particularly are not familiar with this role of certified lay minister. And it does require a strong partnership, but to work through the material. Sometimes that is with your local pastor. Sometimes there might be a retired pastor in your congregation or a retired clergy person in your community that you would potentially work with. But it does require um, engagement on their part. And so I would say that as you're having these conversations, if your pastor isn't familiar with the role and they have questions, please encourage them to reach out to Jim or to me as well. We'll be glad to speak with them about that. And then Jim in particular can talk with them about what support they would need to provide you as they're, you know, going through the process, because we don't want anyone to be surprised when you're asking them to meet with them to talk about, you know, theology or United Methodist polity, or if that you need to, you know, work with them to schedule a time that you can preach a sermon at your church or those kind of things. So if your pastor does have any questions, please have them reach out to us. Jeffrey, yes.
Yes, my question is, I am currently a certified lay servant.
Yes.
Now, I am currently doing, I don't do any small ministries at this point, but I do speak occasionally. Actually, I spoke this morning at church.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the difference between the lay servant and the lay speaker, and how do I get recognized to be a lay speaker?
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So so the lay servant, first of all, is designed to be a role that many people will choose um, to take. Maybe their call isn't to proclamation, but they feel
Mhm.
really called to youth ministry or children's ministries or administration in the church or those other kinds of things. So it's designed to basically recognize the great variety of gifts
Okay.
that God has given us and to help folks develop in whatever way they feel called. The lay speaker role is for
Mhm.
those folks who feel a particular call to proclamation and want to
Mhm.
go a little deeper into that and get certification in that area. There is a specific course of study and a program that you need to follow
Yeah,
for
that's my
that.
question.
And rather than go through that in detail here, I'll be glad to email you
Yeah, that'd be great.
the
Thank you.
link
Yeah.
to that, and you can go through there. But the one of the things that's different is rather than going through these modules, as Jim is saying,
Mhm.
they ask you to take certain advanced lay servant ministry courses. So you'll be asked to take the course in preaching, the
Yeah.
course in worship, the
Right.
course in polity, and what we typically find, or what I have found in our conference, is when you think about those courses, we don't offer them sequentially that way. And so
Mhm.
what typically happens is individuals who want to take the certified lay speaker path will very often end up taking a lot of those courses through beadisciple.com and just kind of doing them in that way rather than taking them. I mean, you're welcome. Like if your district is offering the introduction, the class on preaching, you definitely can do that.
Mhm.
But we don't normally offer them frequently enough for somebody to feel like they're getting progress through the program. And so what ends up happening is a lot of times they will choose to take classes through Be a Disciple to
Mhm.
finish up that course of study, and then we'll recognize them based on their having completed that curriculum there. But I'll be
Okay.
glad to send you more information on that.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But to your
Thanks.
point, you can definitely, as a certified lay servant, you're welcome. You preach, but you're at the pastor's discretion. You can be asked to
Yeah.
preach in your own congregation. You can be asked to preach at another church if their
Right.
pastor is going to, but usually those that are doing certified lay speaker are wanting to preach more regularly and or
Mhm.
make themselves available for the DS to say, "Hey, I've got this church somewhere. The pastor's going to be on parental leave for 2 months. Would you mind going up there and
Mhm.
preaching for them, for several months or something like that?"
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
John, we did have Tamara in the chat asking about certified lay speaker and if that is available to people in all districts. And so I would just say yes, that is. And just I know after you submitted that question, John was mentioning how taking the courses through Be a Disciple is an option. For taking those if your district isn't offering those courses. So, John, you might add Tamara to the email that you were going to send,
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
glad to do that. And again, that information on those different courses, I mean, we try to put that information on the conference website as well, so folks can access it there if you think about it later. Any other questions for this evening?
John, would you also include me on that information for the
I sure will.
requirements for the certified lay speaker?
Yep. In
Thank
fact,
you.
you know what I'll do is I'll just, because others may have questions, I'll just include that link for everyone so
Yeah,
that you can see it when I send that out, and that way folks will have that. So let me tell you again what will happen. So I've recorded this evening. I need to once it's available, I'll send it to the conference office and they will make it available via a link on the conference website. When they tell me that the recording is available, I'll send you guys a link to it so you can watch this again if you need it. I'll send you a copy of the presentation, and I'll also include the information about the lay speaker role in that email. So it'll be a couple days before that comes out to you, but you'll receive that a little later this week. Also, um, when they confirm for me that the registration site is available, I'll send you an email with that so that you'll know that that's up and ready to go if you are interested in pursuing it, and you'll be able to do that. Any questions? Anything else? All right, well, let me just invite you to take a moment. Let's just bow in prayer, and then we'll close together. Most gracious God, we thank you for these your servants who have come together this evening to learn more about how they can continue to grow in their discipleship and serve you, serve their communities, and serve their local congregations through our Lay Servant Ministries program. Ask that you would be with each person here as they continue to work on this path of discernment as to where you're leading them in their discipleship journey. Thank you for Jim and for his leadership and for his willingness to give of his time and expertise to help folks in that process. And Lord, we just ask that you continue to be with us as your church, that we would be faithful to move in the directions that you are making available to us, that you're leading us on, so that all may be done for your glory and for the furtherance of your kingdom. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Thank you all very much for your time this evening. Have a great night.
Night.
Good night.